Bishop Williams. Please forgive me for forgetting your first name, but your first name is, I'm not really sure what it is because
That's
I was
okay.
confused
That's
about
all
that
right.
earlier when I actually asked you that, noticing that it was different on Alignable and Facebook. So we can clarify that, of course. But
Yeah.
now that that's out of the way, I'm very glad to have you on the show. And you could, of course, tell us what your name is and what you stand for, your group. And it sounds like an interesting group. As far as religion goes, I want to just clarify, just as a disclaimer on the show, most of my audience is spiritual but not religious. However, I have had guests of certain specific faiths and religions on the show, and there's no reason it should be a problem. I have absolutely no intention of switching someone's faith, or I have no intention of giving any pros and cons. Well, maybe I do in some degree of some faiths, but I will try to keep the factor of your faith, your specific religion, out of this and focus more on the good intentions of your group and how you seek to do the things that you do and how you intend to do it as an individual person and everything. Hey, if you want to get faith involved, that's fine. As my friends in the spiritual but not religious community, even all the religions definitely have good entities behind them. There may be some manipulation, but there's definitely a lot of good there too. So, but now that I've gotten that out of the way, Bishop Williams, please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, your life story, what you experienced from a primary source perspective that causes you to found the Global Prayer Network International Ministries group that you do, what it and then we'll get into what that group is and what it does and what it plans to do for the future.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. And I do appreciate the time with your live broadcast. First of all, I'm Bishop Wilfred D. Williams, hail from West Africa, or to be specific, from Liberia. And we we encounter 14 years of civil crisis in our country, and I was able to have been opportune to have gone to 6 different African countries as refugees, and I lastly landed in Ghana, West Africa, where I became a pastor and established a prayer ministry and prayer fellowship and praying, worshiping God for the betterment of my lives and the lives of other people. And then I spent 7 years in that refugee camp. Having spent 7 years, I was able to have been opportune to have entered the United States 2006, June 22nd, and I was able to have migrate to the United States of America, and which upon that, in 2012, in the United States, I was able to establish the Global Prayer Network International Ministries, in which, of course, I am the president and the founder and the overseer of this Global Prayer Network. What really prompted me to have established this organization, non-religious, non-profit organization, and interdenomination organization. you know, God has called me as one of the end time generals. When I'm talking about end time generals, that means in my prayer life, in my prayer closet, and things that I do to balance my life within the daily activities with the system of the world that we find ourselves and find our congregation. So I was able to establish this global prayer network, only concentrating on prayer, to be able to build a community of prayer warriors, to be able to build a society of prayer warriors. So our mission is to establish a global prayer movement focusing on prayer and fasting for spiritual revival here in the US, Africa, and various nations in and around the world. So we seek to facilitate and promote prayer and fasting among individuals and other Christian organizations in order to foster spiritual renewal and transformation of families, communities, cities, and nations in furtherance of God's kingdom. So based on this inspiration God gave me, this is a burden on us as the Global Prayer Networks that we are managing out there to establish this prayer movement. Also in our society, we want to give life to the less fortunate people within our society. Like, I must tell you what the Bible says in St. James 1:27. He says the kind of religion that God does accept It is the religion that responsible for the less fortunate children, the religion that is standing hands to the widows, the religion that feeding people, the religion that clothing people. So under this auspices, Global Prayer Network, and I being the founder, was able to establish this organization, a non-profit organization, 501c organization, so that we can pray for nations, so that we can be able to strengthen people in our society who needed to be strengthened. So this is one of the contributing factors Global Prayer Network was established for.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And regarding the geography and the popularity of the different faiths and groups that are in your the Global Prayer Network International Ministries group. What can you give us maybe some statistics regarding which countries seem to be the most represented? These countries seem to be the most people interested in joining this, and as far as race goes, which races of people seem to be the most interested in? As far as faith, you don't have to be a Christian to pray. I mean, spiritual but not religious people, well, they, for all intents and purposes, pray. We can maybe get into the debate on what prayer is and what it isn't later in this program, but I'm interested in know the demography, the statistics of the countries that are represented, and the races and the religions and the age groups too, and the men and men versus women, which seems to be the more popular gender regarding who wants to join this group and who doesn't, who's not interested.
Okay, Andrew, the group is open to anybody for that matter. The group is not limited to certain demography or certain kinds of people within the society. The group is open to everybody. The group is open to whoever want to join the group. You are welcome to join the group. As you join the group, we not canning you. We are not looking at you for your life status, for what you live, for what you do, for who you are and what are you. But the group does not restrict its membership. The group does not restrict its demography within the world. We got Nigerians, we got Ghanaians, we got Liberians, we got American, we got Buddhists, we got Muslims, we got everybody who can be part of this group. The group is open to anybody who want to be part of this group, because as I said, we're here to extend hands. If we say that we are extending hands to the people or to the less fortunate children, if I'm saying that this group is only restricted to Christians, it only restricted to Muslims, it only restricted to Jewish, it only restricted to this, it won't be fair. That won't be fair at all. So the group is open and there is no restriction, there is no boundary on this group to have a restriction. But we extend hands to anybody, and the group is open to any gender, wherever you may be, whoever you are. The group is open to anybody, any demographic in the world can join this group, can be part of this movement of God.
Sounds very fair, very just, very well. I like it. They're getting everyone involved. That's great, but one cannot help but wonder what kind of conflict would get started if one tries to impose their certain suggestions on another faith. Like one of the more popular bumper stickers in the world is the coexist bumper sticker, which has the you may see on cars with all the religious signs in it, making up the word coexist. And it's a great message, of course. But I mean, if you were to go to some sort of a meeting of your kind where people of different faiths and religions are allowed to join in and get together, the one might try to use like certain things that are common in that religion, like maybe some talisman symbols or pendants, or like in the spiritual but not religious community, there's a lot of sacred geometry, and you can imagine that someone of another faith would see that as a threat to their faith. I mean, if that were to ever happen in like a meeting where you guys are gathering for a global prayer ministry meeting to pray for people and spread your word, and someone said, let's get my little tools to help us enhance prayer, if someone perceives that tool as a threat to their specific faith, what kind of things do you guys suggest are done to make sure that it doesn't cause infighting within the global prayer ministries?
I want you to come back with the question. You say when we gather and people gather around the media with different bumper stickers or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, we Global Prayer Network, we are kind of gentle and calm people. You understand?
Yeah.
When we gather in meetings and we see, as you said, somebody come up with a sticker written on the back, and now I serve Lucifer, I do this. I'm just setting an example, right? I mean, we not going to judge you. As I said earlier on, Global Prayer Network is open. Okay, when we gather to intercede and pray for people, and then or somebody will come in to obstruct or not to be offended, and we go and call it. For one thing, you said something that I really love. You are not really religious, but you are spiritual. That I believe. So if you are really spiritual and you see somebody within the confines of your meetings and all of things like that, you allow the spirituality to take its course immediately. And, because the spirit is very gentle and very calm. So we're not going to bother you. We're not going to say nothing to you. As I said, Global Prayer Network is even open to anybody to enter into our confines. It's up to you. It's left to you, because if you come within our territory and who you are and knowing your faith and knowing where you're from and where you're from, we leave it for God to do His work. We're not going to judge you. We're not going to offend you. We're not going to do nothing. We're not going to pull you out. We're not going to castigate you. We're not going to cast you down or look down upon you. But we stand as people. We stand as people. That's why we call global. When you are global, there is no discrimination in being global. You accept anything that comes your way as global. That means you some kind of or international evangelist, international or spiritual man who trying to win the entire universe for maybe what you stand for. You understand? And putting and fostering the motto and aim of Global Prayer Network. So we accept anybody in our meeting. We don't offend people in our meeting. We don't castigate people in our gallery. We do what we're supposed to do.
So I guess it's not an issue because no one will ever make an issue out of it. You're more than welcome
No.
to use your religious tools and talismans or sacred geometry or whatever you want to bring to enhance the experience. And just because someone is of a different faith, they won't infighting with you. That won't happen. That's great. That's very good
Yeah.
indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so although there is the issue with trying to spread this around the world to try to get as many people involved as possible, some places you're going to have you would have a problem with that. I could imagine China would be one, considering that one of the more memorable political cartoons I've ever seen was of a monk practicing his Christian faith in China, and there was a Chinese police officer who was pointing a gun at the monk, and the cartoon had the Chinese police officer tell the Christian monk, well, of course we have freedom of religion in China. You are free to worship Mao Zedong or else you go to prison. Yeah, that's the way China handles religion. So if you try to do anything other than worship Mao Zedong in China, then, well, you're in
Yeah.
trouble. So I have you taken that into consideration when you try to spread this around the world? And like, if people that are living in a country where if the government finds out you're doing something against what the government wants you to pray for, you're screwed. How has that ever been an issue?
You see, I haven't experienced that. I haven't experienced that before, Andrew. But I must tell you, if Global Prayer Network happen, as you said, happen to go to China, and we try to do our work and do what what our website tells or what our statement of faith tells us, and we try to do all of that. And if I encounter, or if any one of my people with me, my team member with me, encounter such a thing, and what am I going to do? It's kind of critical. It's kind of hard. You know what I'm saying? But for what we stand for, I may say this to you, or Andrew. I may say this to you, like the Bible says in Psalm chapter, I think Psalm 1 or 2, it says, "Why will the heathen range and God's people imagine a vain thing?" You understand? So that is, the people will take counsel against, or the war will take counsel against God's people. But God is telling us that we should stand firm. We should stand strong. God gonna be for us. So if Jesus, who that we serve and we try to sell out there to promote the teaching, the doctrines of Jesus as member of the Global Prayer Network, I mean, we are not greater than the master. So whatever he took, we're going to take more than that. So if somebody, I'm saying this, if somebody get a gun to my head, want to arrest me for promoting my faith within the nation, for promoting my faith within a Buddhist or society, I mean, I will just have to, use wisdom. Definitely have to use wisdom to overcome whatever going to be going on. But I'm going to use wisdom on you. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to justify anything. We're not going to justify anything, but we're going to be calm and allow the faith of our organization to be out there. We will with all these things going to come. We know this going to come out because we are global. We are all around the place. It's going to come out, but we just going to be very, very careful, very mindful, because when we get out there to do the work of Global Prayer Network and want to establish a prayer ministry, want to establish a prayer institution in this very nation or whatever it is, and we encounter such a thing, I mean, we just got to, I don't know, but we got to submit to what God wants us to do. We got to submit to whatever is going on, as you said in China. We got to just depend on God, in total dependency on God. Whatever will happen, well, let it happen.
Well said. And I'm looking here at some of the gallery pictures on your site, noticing how some of the women involved with your group are really dressed out in what appears to be fascinating African tribal attire, very fancy, very colorful. And I think the message is us humans need to kind of get back to our roots. Reminds me of that scene from
Yeah,
the movie Raisin in the Sun, where that woman was trying to get back to her Nigerian roots and dressed up like a tribal
yeah.
Nigerian and started playing African music. Well, I can't argue with the fact I'm trying to get back to natural roots too. I've been begging with my dear sweet mama and papa to create a farm out of the property, and well, that'll be the day. It's a lovely wish, but I wish for it to happen, and that's how to get one with nature and all the African women. I see a lot of them when I go to the being
Mhm.
one set, no, the One Art Community Center in West Philly. Often, a
Okay.
lot of people there that wear like African tribal clothing, so I'm kind of familiar with what it's like, and someday I'd like to go there to participate in an Iboga ceremony. That'll be
Okay.
the day.
That's
But
good.
yeah, so getting one with nature and getting back to our roots. How do we?
Mhm.
Any suggestions on how we do that?
To get back to our roots.
Our natural roots. Yeah.
Yeah, there is many ways we can get back to our roots, like where you from and where I'm from. Most of the times you say you go in our society, you go in our community and you want to get back to the roots African attire. This is why you see most of our African sisters, our mothers, they try to dress, the way they are, like they're from Africa. They try to dress, they try to remember their root. They try to go back to their root in their dressing. So, most of the time on Global Prayer Network, we're having his annual prayer meeting. You notice that most of our sisters, most of our men, they wear the African attire. I thought I was going to be in a live chat with you. I was wearing my African attire to be out there. I was going back to my root. But all just to know that it was an audio or call or interview. But when you want to go back to your root, in our setting now, in our setting, like, let's take for an example, Andrew. I left from here and went to some American church, right? And we noticed that the church is kind of, most of the way of worship here is kind of quiet. It kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that the spirit of God is not there, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of poor and quiet. Like you enter, you can't feel that like you are in church. But if you want to go back to your root, and you see what I'm saying? If you want to go back to your root in that manner, visit your African church where you see the African man, he doesn't care what kind of clothes he got on when he gets ready to praise his God. He doesn't care who is around him. This is the real African way of worship. We praise, we dance. When it comes to the African man way of going back to his root in the confines of his God, he does not respect anything they call diplomacy. he does that which he's supposed to do that will foster his mind back to his root. Like when you're in Africa, people go to church, people praise, people worship, they sweat and stuff like that, you know. So when we come here, this is why we try to establish our own church. We try to do one or two things to have our own church, to remember our culture, how we worship our God, how we serve our God, how we don't care who is around us, who is watching us, who's seeing us. We don't care. So when we dive in that kind of area, then we remember where we came from, and we want to be in that kind of roots. We want to be in that kind of culture. We want to be in that kind of society most of the time.
Right, and well, the African people are very fascinating with what they can do to get one with nature. And I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here. I do want to stick with the Global Prayer Initiative. But since you have a lot of African roots in you, one thing about Africa that always seems to worry me in the present day is the way other countries will try to go into Africa to exploit it for its natural resources. The United States and China, for all intents and purposes, are at war with each other in Africa over its resources, and they don't talk about that on the news. But maybe you remember the whole Kony 2012 thing back in 2012, where there was this guy Joseph Kony who hadn't been seen in over 5 years at the time, but they were using him as a phony boogeyman to say we need to go to Africa to save children from Joseph Kony. But it was all a lie to cover up a conspiracy to go there to exploit Africa for its natural resources. And, you know, there's a lot of talk right now about how when this coronavirus thing is over, the economy may come back, and I hope this happens, going to a gold standard where the currency that we use is going to be backed by gold. And Africa is definitely going to get heard from a lot if that happens, because, well, it seems like Africa, especially South Africa, is where all the gold is. And if countries go to the gold standard, you can imagine there's going to be a lot more mining going on in Africa, or incentive for mining to happen to cash in on the gold standard currency. And I can't help but ask you, sorry if it makes you uncomfortable, but I can't help but ask you, how does knowing that make you feel about your homeland continent?
You know, I must be very honest with you, though. I don't want to go into politics, you know. As you said, we want to stick within the confines of Global Prayer Network. But let me be very honest with you. I will say this, and I will say this like I'm saying it, like I mean this. You know, we hold our African leaders accountable for what is happening in Africa. Okay? Now, if Africa gonna have a true leadership, I won't be running to the United States for greener pasture. If the leaders in Africa will have the mentality to develop their resources, that everybody will benefit from the resources, the natural mineral in our country. Nobody will want to travel to Europe. Nobody from Africa will want to travel to Europe to have a greener pasture. So all these things, we blame our African leaders because what? They are very greedy. They greed. Selfishness. You understand? African leader is me, my family, and myself. So if we African leaders will come together, if we will come together and hold together and develop our resources, natural gases, gold, diamond, with all the mineral we got in our country, if we would not allow the white man, excuse for the expression, the man from Europe, the man from the Western world to enter into our country and exploit our country for little or nothing. If we Africans will grasp that mentality to come together and work on our development, work on our togetherness, work on how we can develop our nation, that we will not seek greener pasture in the Western world. You understand? So the only problem we have here, the only problem we have in Africa, it has to do with our leaders. The only problem we got today, it has to do with our leader. If our leaders will put themselves together. Let me take for an example. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria is very rich when it come to natural gases. Nigeria is very rich, but why people are living in poverty in Nigeria? Why Nigerians are engaged in so many things that they shouldn't be engaged in? Because what? There is no good governance in Nigeria. So we are all around the place looking for greener pasture, looking for betterment of life, looking for good success, looking for this, looking for that to better the life of our children that we left for, to better the life of our people. So if the African leaders, Andrew, if the African leaders will put their eyes together, if they will put themselves together and forget about selfishness, forget about themselves and put the country and put the nation ahead, I mean, Africa will be a great place. It will be a great place to live. It will be a great place to work. It will be a great place to have a better future and a better life.
You couldn't have said it any better. And yeah, it's a shame that Nigeria has to focus on oil so much. We have all the technology we need, Nikola Tesla type technology that would make oil obsolete, and Nigeria wouldn't have to harm Mother Earth by drilling the blood of the earth out of the
Yeah.
ground. It drives me crazy. But anyhow, let's switch back to the main reason you came on, and that was regarding the prayer thing. And well, one thing I need to ask about how you guys, if when you have meetups or if someone is joining the meetup in spirit and like being at home at a certain time where you guys communicate and say, let's have a prayer at this time or whatever. Is it common for people to call in guardian angels and spirit guides before the prayer session to guide and protect and make the most of the prayer session, or is that something that's not really done very often, or
No,
do
we
you
do
have
that very often. We do that right now as I'm talking to you. I'm doing a 14 days prayer.
Hmm.
I'm in a 14 days prayer right now. Like I pray every 3 hours right now. I pray every 3 hours. The last hour I'm going to pray going to be the 9 o'clock from 9 to 9:30. Now on my way to work. Or then we normally have. Listen, we know we are Andrew. We are intercessors. We are. Listen to me. God said something. He said, "Give me no rest until you can be established." You understand? Let's take for an example. We got this plague that is going on, in the universe. We got this thing that is happening. Now, we're not going to pray any selfish prayer. Oh God, save me, save my hustle, save my family, save the Lord. There is something in prayer they call the dynamics of prayer. It's strategic prayer. Now, when I talk about the dynamics of prayer, like when you about to pray, Andrew, and you find yourself healing in different direction of that dynamics prayer, then it becomes a dynamics prayer. That is, God is leading you in that area to pray. You understand? So what we do here is that we don't wait to have a regular prayer conferences. No, we don't wait for that. But we got people who log on the prayer line Monday. We got people who log on the prayer conference line on Wednesday. We got people who log on the prayer conference line on Friday. We got people who log on the prayer conference line on Friday at midnight. So we have a prayer chain, a continuation of prayer chain that is going around. We continue to pray. We don't just wait for our annual prayer conferences. We don't wait for that. But we pray, and when we are praying, God is directing our prayer. God is telling us what to say. God is telling us how to pray. That's how we do. We don't just sit and wait for a specific time. No. Because we are God's end-time generals. Okay? Listen, the church now, I don't want to go into church and faith, but the church on the face of the earth, they are feeling God today. So God is raising up end-time generals, end-time prayer warriors, end-time people, pastors, because he said that if you fear me, I will raise up a stone. So in this dispensation, God is raising people up who will not defile themselves with any other gods, who will not defile themselves to fornication, who will not defile themselves to things that will not benefit God. You understand? So God in this dispensation, we're not waiting to say, oh, this fighting war on this side, we have to pray. They're doing this on this side, we have to pray. But every time of our life, Global Prayer Network, the level of maturity God has brought us to, we pray every day of our life, every day. As I'm telling you now, I'm going through 14 days, not fast, but it's just prayer. 14 days prayer, we got to hear from God concerning the universe, because the universe is confused. Our leaders are confused. They don't know what to do. So we who God has called, we have to come together as Global Prayer Network and pray for the universe, because we want a spiritual revival to be established, so all men will know the creation of God.
Very well said indeed. And okay, now since you ended that thing with the word God, I can't help but ask because this always makes for a great radio conversation. If someone were asked you to define God, and I'm not going to debate whether or not that's a capital or lowercase g in God, but what is God? If you ask me that question, I say God is infinite consciousness, and well, I
Mhm.
could explain why I believe that. But I'm not going to take away from your potential showtime here.
I
So
know.
if I were forced, or if you were forced, and maybe I am forcing you here to give a definition, a simple, concise definition for what would your answer be to if someone asked you what God is, you would say God is what?
I would tell you, I would be very straight away. God is the creator of heaven and
Oh,
earth. That's who God is. God is the creator of heaven and earth. God is the creator of the universe. God is the creator of creation. God is the creator of mankind. And why did he create mankind? That we must have a relationship with him. That's who God is. God is a spirit. God is an infinite God. God, we don't see God, but by faith we do see God. We do hear God. We do feel God.
and I make the assertion we are God because if you believe God is infinite consciousness, then that means that, well, space and time are illusions. Everything exists because our consciousness allows for it to exist. So by that definition, everyone and everything is God. But that's what the spiritual but not religious folks would say.
Mm.
Everybody else has their own point of view,
The
and
point of view of God, yeah.
okay, yes,
But
fair
Andrew,
enough.
can I ask you a question? Do you believe in God?
Did I not say yes? If I believe God is infinite consciousness, then I would the
Oh,
obvious
okay.
answer would have to be
Okay.
yes.
I didn't get you. But do you believe in Jesus Christ as the Lord and personal Savior too? Or
Okay, since boy, so many of the trolls are going to have a field day with this conversation, I'm sure. But I have always been of the opinion that the story of Jesus in the Bible has unfortunately been manipulated by a lot of forces throughout the years to twist his story. But the
okay.
entity Jesus did exist. Yes, he did exist. He was a infinite consciousness being like all of us, a lot of solar energy, as the theory goes, and maybe some Pleiadian energy too, if you want to talk about star system genetics. But
Okay.
his story has been twisted. My understanding is that the story that we see in the Bible is a twisted story, which unfortunately would mean anybody who takes it literally is being suckered for believing something that's been twisted to be a historical lie. That's my take. You want to agree to disagree, go right ahead. Um,
I know.
all right. So, but I don't really know to need to get on with that any further. But I've heard a lot of interesting things about this, and to think that all the religious figures didn't exist. People say the conspiracy theorists say they didn't exist because all their religions are lies. They're all twisted. No, I mean they had to have existed because if everything exists because our consciousness exists, then our thoughts create reality. We think about these entities; they must exist somewhere, if not in the physicality that we perceive through our consciousness, somewhere else in some light universe dimension or density. They must exist somewhere. And now, since I mentioned that, uh, I did tell you that I wanted to go to Africa sometime for an Iboga ceremony. Now that raises the question: these people that in these prayer groups, do you by any chance have people who are in these like ayahuasca and San Pedro and peyote and Iboga? I shouldn't use the word cults because it's not supposed to be a cult. It's just
Mhm.
it is a religious group of sorts, a psychedelic and theogenic religious group where they use some sort of a substance to enter an altered state. And this is, if it's a spiritual experience and prayer is spiritual, then yeah, you can make the link that then people who use that stuff should by all means be allowed to get involved with your prayer ceremonies and all. But do you try to generally shun away from the idea of people using such powerful psychoactive substances when you're praying and doing spiritual work that you intend to do with your community?
Oh, I'm gonna be very honest with you. If a circuit or whole kind of different kind of stuff, and I mean, we don't. No, I can link Global Prayer Network to that. You know what I'm saying? Oh,
Hmm.
that's whole different ball game. You know what I'm saying? A different ball game. I cannot, because Global Prayer Network is, as we are a non-profit non-interdenomination group. You understand? But in as much as we are a non-interdenomination group, we don't encourage people that do fetish things. We don't encourage people that worship other gods. You understand? We don't encourage people who serve or Satan. We don't do that. Our doctrine and our statement of faith, our vision and mission statement is strictly in accordance with the Bible. What we believe is strictly in accordance with the Bible. But all we wish for those people who have not come to the saving knowledge of God, that our prayer will be able to transform them to know that there is no other God beside God. There is no man-made God. So tell me, Andrew, I am a bishop, and I deal strictly with the Bible. I don't expect myself to really get involved into extra occult worship than my Bible. Because the Bible says we should not be unequally yoked with unbeliever. So your belief, what you believe as an atheist, is not that what I believe. Like one of my sisters told me a story that she did an application at a job and she was overqualified for that position. And when she submitted the application, and this woman was an atheist. She is an atheist, one of the hierarchy in the job. And she called the next manager and said, look, we can't give this woman the job. Why? Because she's a pastor. We can't give this woman the job. Why? Because she is a reverend doctor. We can't give her this job. So the guy said, but if you do that, when she take us to court, it's going to be a problem for us. But we say give her the job because she qualified for the job. You understand? So that means that the atheist and the Christian, we can work together because we are not alike mind. You understand? We are not alike. We don't have the same mindset. So if you serving another God, first of all, if you serving another God and I serving the Creator who make the heaven and earth, there will be some distinction. There will be some distinction. You asked me earlier on a question when we gather and we see these people from our community, these people come in to obstruct and this, that, and that. I want those open to people who not yet believe in God, but we pray that they will believe in God. Like the common man who walking down the street is frustrated. Like the man who got no sense of direction. Andrews, I'm going to tell you, there's a woman in the Bible who had 10 coins. And she lost one of the coin, you understand? And what she did, the Bible says she left a lamp. She left a lamp to search for the coin. Why did she do that? Because the coin got missing, but the coin did not lose a value. And she went and found a coin. So we got people in the street of Philadelphia. You normally go to Philadelphia. We got people in the street that standing or at the corner store. We got people in some area that hope of prostitution. We got folks that standing in the corner store and doing drugs. You know, so this is one of the passion of Global Prayer Network. We can bring these people can come into our confines and we can tell them about their life, that there is another life about their life. Despite they smoke marijuana, they do drugs, they do crack, but their life is not yet lost. There is still value in their life. So this is one of the messages we try to put in prostitute. This is one of the messages we try to give to armed robbers. That even though we understand you lost, but you are not, once you are not dead, you still have a life. So these are people that we targeting to give them another meaning of the life. But we cannot identify with the man that's serving a hard or fetish God. There is a battle. You understand? There is a battle between that man and I. But we focusing on folks that are hooked on crack, that are hooked on drugs. Listen, you remember when Jesus, when the king in the Bible, when the king organized a banquet, and he sent his servant to call people who was begging to attend that service for his son. But when the documentation went out to an uttermost surprise, none of those guys came for the program. None of them attended the program. Everybody was giving excuse. Until when they came, the banquet was about to start, and the king came from upstairs. He came downstairs, and the place was empty. What did he do? He told his servant, he said, go in the highway, bring me the prostitute, bring me the armed robbers, Bring me the gambler. Bring me everybody. Bring me those that don't have meaning for the life. Bring me every one of them. And what happened? They came in. They brought them. They sat at the table. And there was a guy who entered that hall. He was well dressed up from everybody that was in that area. He was well dressed up. I mean, he was neat, wearing his tuxedo, wearing about $2,000 of shoes, and his wearing and all was different. You know what I'm saying? But when the king came down that step, he saw that man sitting in the corner. He asked him, "Who is this man?" So the representation of this entire scripture tells us that that man needed not the sacrificial and substitutionary death of Christ. So he wanted to come on his own. You understand? So what am I saying here is that these people, these fetish people, these people who are serving another gods, who don't believe in God, we cannot identify with them. We don't believe the same thing. We don't believe the same thing. We cannot allow them in our area. We can't do that. We can't identify with them. You understand? There is a line of demarcation between us. Your God is different from my God, and my God is greater than your God. So we need the sacrificial and substitutionary death of Christ, but they don't need that. They need the other means. They need the other means to come to God, and there is only one way to God, and this is the way we are pursuing. So we cannot identify with these men and women, the Sakis, who operating on familiar spirit and all that. We cannot identify with that. We identify with armed robbers. We identify with prostitutes. We identify with less fortunate people who don't even know how to pray, who don't even have food to eat. These are people we identify with. These are people that we want to give them new meaning of life. But those people out there, they are hardly in the hard demonic realm. We cannot identify with them because Christ says that, remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. These are people that we fight when we go to prayer. But the man that's standing on the corner with his marijuana in his hand, the girl that hook on prostitution, the man that hook on drugs, this is our passion to give them another meaning of their life.
Well, it's good that you're doing that, and there's no doubt that things like prayer and meditation can certainly help people get over addictions. And on the note of Jesus Christ, I have no doubt that the Spirit of Jesus Christ is very much alive and well in terms of our financial system being changed right now. Got a lot of sources right now that are saying when this coronavirus thing is over, the economy will be different. No more corruption on Wall Street and no more usury from banks loaning, because hopefully we'll go to a gold standard. And Jesus' stories, one of the more prominent stories is him chasing the money changers out of the temple because they were charging usury. That I'm sure the spirit of that happening is very much alive in the present moment, because some of my sources say the Federal Reserve, like for all intents and purposes, it's done, been merged with the Treasury, and well, the Treasury is where money's supposed to be coming from, and well, Spirit of Jesus is no doubt the Spirit of Christ. I think we should use the word Christ and not Jesus, because Jesus, there was no letter J in those times, so it's kind of a little bit of
Yeshua, Yeshua.
Yeah. So I prefer Christ, the Spirit of Christ, very alive and well in our solving our monetary problems in the present day. And on that note, what else is worth discussing? Anything else you want to get out? I mean, I didn't know if we would really need to go.
Yeah, what I want to get out here is what I want you to do for me. I want you to promote this prayer movement, this global prayer network, and we're in the process of establishing a prayer school. But it was just the coronavirus that halted everything, and we want to establish one of the largest prayer school within New Jersey to empower our society, to empower our community, to empower families. Because I must be very frank with you. Let me tell you, before I can leave, let me tell you this, Andrew. You see, when a woman is about to give birth, you will notice that the pain is very persistent. You understand? The pain is very persistent. And until she gives birth, that pain won't go away. So Jesus, who is the Son of God, is about to come. He's about to visit the earth. The war is coming to an end. So this is why we see lot of calamity. When you read in the book of Luke chapter 21, Christ said that there will be nonsense pestilence. And when we look at the word pestilence, the Greek and Hebrew meaning for pestilence is plague and disease. And this is what we're experiencing. So I believe that this plague is ushering in another disaster to bring all men to the knees that God is God. God is ready to come back to the earth and do that which he has promised. So we, as Global Prayer Network, we want to empower our society. We want to encourage people into prayer. We want to teach people how to pray. We don't want people to come pray for me, do the no. We need men and women to rise up and pray in this dispensation. That's what God's seeking for. We want men and women who will rise up and pray, and things will begin to change, things will begin to unfold. So this is the platform of Global Prayer Network. So as a radio forecast, I want you to sell our organization out there, and we're going to be having a program right after this virus. We're going to be having the launching of our school, and we're going to be having a fundraising program as well. And because the organization is a 501c3 organization, we're going to be having series of prayer meetings. Everything you see on our website is prayer meeting. I was in Africa 2017, 2016, 17. I did a groundbreaking ceremony, and we're trying to build a community center. It's not a church we're building. We're trying to build a community center to host prayer meeting, to be able to empower those folks that are standing in the corner, to tell them, to give them another meaning of the life, to feed people, take folks from the street, give them the meaning of life, tell them what God is capable of doing in the life, because I was somehow down that road before. I felt hunger before. I saw the hands of death before. I saw this. So we want to give them another meaning of life. So Andrew, I have gotten in connection with you, and I hope and pray that you will be able to help the platform of Global Prayer Network. You will be able to help spiritually, financially, promote the radio, the Global Prayer Network on your platform, so that we can come. Maybe one day we meet, you'll be able to visit to see what we're doing in Africa.
I will definitely promote this. As far as donating, I'm not in a position to donate anything, but I'll do whatever I can to help you spread it. And I do actually have one question I'd like to ask you before I ask you to one more time get out your website and contact info and all that, and then we'll call it a show. One thing that a lot of my audience members in the spiritual and our religious community would have a lot of beef with is, well, the idea of praying. The argument is, from a law of attraction standpoint, prayer, when you're praying, that implies lack, because when you pray, you're saying to the universe, I lack this, I want this, but I lack it, so I'm going to pray for it. Some spiritual people say that's not a good way of attaining something, because the universe doesn't understand yes and no. It just understands the fact that, well, you're lacking it. So they would say, rather than pray for it, you should envision it being in your life, because your thoughts, and more specifically your emotions, create your reality. And that's they would say maybe you should have called it Global Envisionment Network instead of Global Prayer Network. Well, I don't want to diss the title. I mean, this is a point of view issue again. Some people don't perceive prayer as implying lack, and maybe you don't, but this is what a lot of my audience members would say. So I felt I should ask you, what's your take on that?
Yeah, you see, global prayer. There is different kind of prayer if you see that, because number one, in prayer, if you praying to God for something, talking about universe, listen, if you asking for something, God should be able to benefit from it. You see what I'm saying, Andrew? If you're seeking from God, if that's what you're seeking for, if God is not going to benefit from it, you will not get it. Even though the Bible says, ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find. But in seeking, in what manner are you seeking? In what manner are you seeking? Are you seeking in selfish manner? Are you seeking in selfishness? So you're not going to get that. So as we vision in us, what is in us, as you said, we should say global vision. No, we can do that. But we believe in prayer, and prayer is our rock. And we got so many ways of praying that when we pray, we want God to benefit from what we are praying for. Take for an example, Andrew, if I am praying for a church and I say, God, I need this building to have an office, to have a prayer conferences in this building. God going to have the universe going to hear to that because it's going to be a blessing, and God going to be part of that blessing. God going to take that blessing as well. He's going to take his glory. So he answered such a prayer because he's benefiting from it.
Thank you. That's the key thing there. God's benefiting from it because you're benefiting from it. Yes,
Yeah.
I do like that. So, with that being said, I guess I'll bring this interview to a close. We did get a lot of stuff out in the hour that we talked. You can right now get out anything you like, your contact info, how people can reach you, any upcoming events and all that, what you see for the future of this, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I'll let you know about it. Definitely, I will let you know. I know. Do you do also broadcasting?
Well, actually, this is a pre-record. It's not live. I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube for people to listen to. So as far as live broadcasting goes, I haven't really done it yet, but
Oh,
it can be done if you want me to live broadcast on any program. Well, I can help you with that if you think you can assist my radio skills to assist you. This interview, though, is not live. It is a pre-record, and I will upload it as soon as possible to YouTube, and I will promote it, spread the word about it to try to
okay.
help you out with that.
Okay. I
So,
will. I will get in touch with you when we're getting ready to launch the prayer school, so you can be part of it.
okay.
I will
Thank you very
definitely. I will
much.
definitely send you. I will definitely hit you up so you can be part of our prayer school. If you do the video, please send me the link so I can share it to my family and friends too. Okay.
Okay, I will do
Thank
that.
you so much, man. I appreciate the time with you. I love your spirit. Keep the positive energy going, man. God bless you,
Will
man.
do. Take care.